Hello, good evening and welcome to UPfront. This day, the most important controversy surrounding the comprehensive sexuality education is going to be dealt with as the education minister substantively is in a position or has backtracked on what is his actual position on the matter. We will be perusing that particular issue, plus what the people who are of the belief we have shelved it think about the current position of government and whether or not this is going to be maintained. Is government going to do away permanently with the comprehensive sexuality education that has been massively opposed by the people, or it will be introduced through the back door? That's the kind of conversation that we'll be having on UPfront today with people who are opposing it and those who are actually deciding on what to do with this policy. After the break, I'll let you know how this conversation is going to start. Who is saying what in the latest revelations on what the truth about comprehensive sexuality education is in Ghana. You welcome back. This is UPfront. Now, yesterday, this is what the Education Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, said about the status of the comprehensive sexuality education policy.
We were launching a program of UNESCO. That program is not comprehensive sexual education. It's O3, our rights, our values, and the third O, and our world or something. That is it. Our rights, our values, our rights, and our world. That is a program that, if you read what you read carefully, everybody heard sexual and reproductive health. So UNESCO comes to launch a product here. So that adolescent and reproductive health, if you live here now and you go, you will get a document on adolescent and reproductive health. That includes sex education or sexual education. As somebody said, the name comprehensive is what people are battling with. Sex education has been part of the curriculum in Ghana since the 1940s. The Ministry of Health, or for that, the Ministry of Information, goes around and is educating the public on our civic rights. Does it mean that civic rights is in my curriculum? It may be, but it doesn't mean so. So people should get the distinction, because this distinction has a difference. The curriculum that has been developed out of the framework for use by Ghana Education Service in all public schools and approved by Cabinet and as published does not include comprehensive sexuality education. Show Ghanaians where this is the Ministry of Education's official document.
GES is a branch of Ministry of Education itself.
This document on comprehensive sexual education is not part of the curriculum. You use the word National Population Council, not Ministry of Education. In fact, adolescent sexual reproductive health, that document that has been done by PPAG, UNFPA, has got nothing to do with the curriculum we are running as Ministry of Education. We appeal to the general public and all faith-based organizations to exercise restraint and verify facts of official government policy before making public pronouncements. The nation should be rest assured that the government and the ministry will not compromise our societal values in the delivery of quality education.
That is the Education Minister categorically stating that there's no way in our curriculum, in any of our documents, that this state has approved and this state is using to teach the kids in this country, or will use to teach the kids in this country, that has comprehensive sexuality education. And that the matter should be put to rest. But today, he made some form of admission on Peace FM. Listen to him. So that is the Education Minister there. We will be getting that particular sound where he makes some form of admission and big slight retreat in this particular statement that we have not considered It is not on our table. It is not in our curriculum, and we have not put it on the table anytime soon. Now, you can listen to the same education minister somewhere in February, and he mentioned that particular point, where he makes reference to comprehensive sexuality education. Indeed, you heard me earlier on say that what he talked about had nothing to do with comprehensive sexuality education. Now listen to the education minister.
The subject of sexuality education has become a very important matter, particularly for the youth in our societies. Indeed, the changing societal context, characterized by the free flow of information, media pluralism, and the social media, has necessitated the need for education systems to provide accurate information on sexuality education. We in Ghana have a guideline that I've shared with you that we see it as imperative if this nation should develop, that sexuality education should be part of the curricula that we would launch this year in September, all the way from kindergarten to senior high school. Let me congratulate UNESCO and partners for the timely nature of this high-level dialogue among ministers of the four regions, Eastern, Southern Africa, Western, and Central Africa, to shape the discourse and the implementation of comprehensive sexuality education in Africa. Ghana has long recognized sexual and reproductive health education as a conduit for addressing issues affecting the youth in this area, originally provided by elders and other traditional leaders in community. Aspects of reproductive health education were introduced in the school system with the advent of formal education.
So you heard the emphatic phrase from the minister in this particular tape, that indeed we are considering it. We are actually intending to introduce it, and this is the month of October. In September, when we start our new curriculum and all the conversations that we're supposed to have now. Now, two things can clearly happen in this case. That the minister knew that government had the intention to do so, and then government backtracked. Or the minister was not aware that after his speech, some form of tape he mentioned earlier, and his reference was that ministers can make comments on matters that are still not policy yet. And his final commentary on this matter is that the comprehensive sexuality education thing hasn't been approved yet. That is given credence by some EPO statement that was given to the National Curriculum Development Unit. And I will set up a body to do that, to reform our curriculum, to make sure that we are up to date with international standards and all of that. That body, he says, is the one that put it in their document. But even in that document, it's not been approved yet. So the elements of comprehensive sexuality education is not, as we speak, on our table. Now, one more thing that you need to know is the latest development on this. What is in the budget of 2019 on this one? What did the budget capture? Now, if you can go with me specifically to the section 369 of the 2019 budget, it's on your screen. I'll read that part clearly for you to understand. It says here, Mr. Speaker, the National Population Council, in collaboration with other stakeholders, developed guidelines on comprehensive sexual education for incorporation into the national education curriculum. For incorporation. We understand that at the end of the day, it was. What the minister is saying today is that it's yet to be approved and hasn't been approved yet. The council reviewed policies that impose structural barriers to condom use in Ghana as part of its efforts to effectively implement the national condom strategy in line with SDG 3.7. This is also one other indication that it has been contemplated before. It has been part of our engagement, and if for nothing at all, there was an intention, if we believe our budgets to be a reflection of our economic policy and our direction as a state, there was an intention to inculcate this into the national education curriculum, as is stipulated here by that particular section of the budgetary allocation. And this budget is clearly 2019's budget. It's not the previous reviewed or abridged budget. It is the full statement in this case. Now, I did talk about the minister saying that there was no intent at all, and we've not gone there. If you are less likely to believe what the budget is saying, or more likely to take your attention to what's supposed to be said by the minister, this is Minister Matthew Opoku Prempeh on Peace FM today.
teams at Kakakabi to energy efficiency, climate change, sanitation, civic education, comprehensive sexual education. Large teams are Obiabe the back curriculum. Now, after the back curriculum, this will develop content, now developing age specific material for that specific age. Now, make her approve it. So, in line with what we accept in this country. And so, that comes to approve, we have the other. Even when you look at the teacher resource part, no teacher was trained on CS. No teacher was trained on sanitation. No teacher was trained on energy efficiency. No teacher has been trained on road safety. Even though there are general teams, even in the teacher resource, that has been mentioned. That is the first thing. The video now, banner, make us have a so,
So in a sum, what the minister is saying is that, well, we might have it in our documents, but no teacher was trained on that. No teacher was asked to actually go through the kind of training they are going through on the new curriculum with that. And he mentioned other sectors of other issues that we sought to inculcate into our curriculum, which is also not being finally approved for training for the teachers so that they can pass it on to the students in this particular case. You can chew on this for a second. After the break, my guest will be here. They will continue the conversation. We'll start off first and foremost with what the Catholic Bishops' Conference insists. You welcome back. This is UPfront. My name is Raymond Dalka. Today, the conversation is pretty clear. What is the future of the country when it comes to this comprehensive sexuality education? Is it in or out of our curriculum for this year? At least the minister stated categorically yesterday that it is not in our books. We have presented to you some evidence suggests that as far back as February, the minister said we're going to inculcate it into our curriculum come September. Now, the minister comes back to say that, well, it is in our proposed document from the National Curriculum Grouping. It has not been approved yet. It's not become a working document. And the people we trained to teach our kids in schools, as was done a couple of weeks ago, the curriculum that was used in training them and the guidebooks did not include that. Indeed, we also show you that even in our national budget, that section 369 of the budget clearly makes reference to an intent, and it states here, if I need to reiterate that, the National Population Council, in collaboration with stakeholders, develop guidelines on comprehensive sexual education for incorporation into the national education curriculum. The question we are asking is whether or not indeed we are abandoning this or still is going to happen. Or we're going to find ingenious ways of introducing this. And how injurious will this be to our national moral fiber and the country as a whole? That's the conversation we are having here today. Now, in studio already with me, seated, is Bishop Samuel N. Mensah. He's the president of the Full Gospel Church International and the executive member. He's an executive member of the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Churches. We understand this group is addressing a press conference on this matter tomorrow too.
You bet.
Very much so. We'll be hearing more on that. And also with us here is Sheikh Ahmiel Saibu. He is actually the spokesperson of the National Chief Imam. You're welcome,
Thank
Sheikh.
you. Thank you.
And gentlemen, you're welcome once again.
Thank you.
Now, I want us to start from the beginning because already there is some understanding out there about what we knew of comprehensive sexuality education and what this government is saying it wants to do with comprehensive sexuality education. Let me start with you, Reverend. So, exactly what is the problem with the comprehensive sexuality education? Why are church leaders and people of the cloth so averse to it being part of our curriculum for the young kids in this country?
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to our viewers. One thing I just want to recap briefly You know, the Greeks, Raymond has a philosophy that there are three groups of people in the world. The first group of people in the world are the idiots. And according to the Greek philosophy, the idiots think about themselves here and now. They don't think about tomorrow. It's all about what they will benefit, what will benefit them. Everything is about their interest in terms of decision making and everything. The second group of people, according to the Greek philosophy, are the tribal mindset. The tribal people are people who only think about their group. Whether the group is doing something well or not, whether it is good or evil, they will support it regardless of whatever it is. According to the Greeks, the third group of people are the citizens, who think about the next person, who thinks about the next generation, who thinks about decisions that they need to make, how it will affect the next generation. So according to the Greeks, these are the three groups of people.
Interesting.
They are in our society, they are in our government, they are in our politics, and therefore, when leaders are taking decisions, and it's about here and now, then you should understand that it's all about, according to the Greek philosophy, idiotic behavior. And therefore, the challenge of these comprehensive, according to our GPCC terminology, comprehensive satanic education, it is something that is going to really lead these children to a destructive behavior. It's all under the umbrella of the LGBTQ. And this, teaching children, if according to the philosophy, if the children can express themselves that they are thirsty, therefore you give them water. They are hungry, you can give them food. Then you should be able to give them sex if they say they want sex. And that is the issue that we are bothered with. The issue of lesbianism, the issue of gay, the issue of children at that age being introduced to sexual activity is nothing but destructive. And the church community, the Muslim community, traditional leaders definitely are against it.
Now, the claim on the other side is that we are being a bit hypocritical what's required of it. At very young ages, kids have learned a lot in this information age, and that in a controlled environment in the classroom, that's perhaps where to pass on the right information to them. So merely mentioning homosexual tendencies doesn't mean the teacher is asking the kids to be homosexuals. Sheikh, you think it's right?
Well, we live in a world of perspectives. And so now sexuality and how people express it comes in different forms. We are going to expose our children to all this information at the most impressionable stage of their growth. You know, when you are given different alternatives, you have a discretion to exercise. Choice you make depends so much on your value. Our children at that stage have not reached the stage where they are able to make a determination and to understand and be conscious very well of their values. Your value determines any choice you make at any time, your discretion and the consequences. This has not been understood. So if you expose our children to this, then you expose them to some of the dangerous things, and they make decisions, and it comes with say, right. So it's my body. And you see, the words, it's my body, it's my right. I decide what to do with my body. So my daughter says, well, I'm a female, I do not like to be a female. So it's my body. So she goes to see a doctor and says she turns into a male. This is completely at variance with those of us who believe in religion. It's a completely humanistic viewpoint that says that a human being is central to his existence and is not a respondent to any external guidance. This completely is against our values. Our values determine our identity and our distinctiveness. This is something that we thought that is not something that we should.
Now, the understanding we have of some of these things is that we are a secular nation. I mean, education curriculum cannot really be tuned to the religious interest of the religious bodies in the country. Are we not asking too much when
let me say something.
Regulate that space?
You see, I think I have time and again tried to explain this. Secularism is not the same as godlessness. Secularism, being a secular state, absolutely does not mean the state is godless. That's why in Ghana, we have a secular constitution, in which case no one religion is made to appear supreme, based on whose teachings a whole governance system is conducted. But that, as a people, we believe in God. That's why for Ghana, for example, the bishop is there occasionally. Even state functions, because of our depth, we sing our national anthem, God bless our homeland Ghana. At the appointment of any person who is going to take an office, the swearing in oath so help me God. All these things are pointers to the fact that as a nation, we are people who are deep in our sense of God. But that no one religion is made. So that's why, for example, in Ghana, when it comes to like this, you find that Muslims and Christians, we share certain common values. If we see anything that's a threat to the moral integrity, our identity, our movement forward, you will find the Muslim and the Christian joining hands. Like this particular case, it's abhorrent to the Christian teaching, it's abhorrent to the Muslim teaching, and you find us saying that, no, you bring us, I think that the mistake that was done, there is a gap between what the minister said earlier on that has been played and what he is saying now. Yeah. The gap has given rise to all these things. Secondly, it appears to me there was not exhaustive discussion so that community will understand it and own it.
Were you consulted?
I can't remember any time that we engaged in such a discussion. Then,
was it on the curriculum in general or on the comprehensive sexuality part?
There is a comprehensive sexuality part.
But you were generally consulted about the curriculum development?
No, the curriculum, well, the NACA, they said there are Muslim bodies over there. But as to whether the Christian and the Muslim bodies even came out to tell the larger community that this is what is coming.
Yes.
Yeah. So actually there was a communication gap.
Okay.
And so therefore it came to us as a surprise, something unfamiliar, and then without information about, look, there are things, of course, that might come through mischief, but it gives us a certain cause for worry. A schoolboy, the language he speaks, to give you a sense of when the child is exposed to it.
Okay.
From that impressionable level of his life, you hear the language that the child speaks. For us, we say, where does this thing begin in the life of the child? Where does it end? Where does it continue? This has not been made clear. It says from age 4, kindergarten. So KG1 for year 4, KG2,
but the
year 5.
explain is graduated. It's not as if at the basic end everything is exposed to the child. It is actually in different levels, and as when you go up, the more complicated matters are introduced to you.
The duty for them would have been to have laid this thing clearly, so that when we understand it, what we think, in fact, there are certain areas where, for example, if you say open-mindedness, non-judgmental attitude with respect to sexuality. So therefore, everything is okay for the child. Okay, transgender, it's okay. Lesbianism, it's okay. Because he said, look, don't pass judgment.
Is there a problem with that?
There's a problem with that. For us, of course, for somebody who does not believe in any God, any moral principles or any ethical, not guided, his actions are not guided, or his choices are not guided by, but that he sees himself as an individual, completely separate from the larger society. I think it's a liberalist understanding of the individual and his relationship with the society. And so the individual is foremost before the society. But I always see there's a certain symbiotic relationship. Okay. That's why in Africa, you say, I am because we are, and we are because I am. Okay. And this is deep in our philosophy of the communitarian living. And so your child is my child is your child. And these are the things that guide the way we do our things. And I think that probably, I'm happy that the minister is saying probably it is not part of it, probably they are, but they've committed themselves already.
So what do you change let me come to you, Bishop. What do you think is government's stance? What do you think? Are you clear in your mind on the ministry's stance on this matter?
So far as the GPCC thing is concerned, we are not too clear as to the actual position of government. You know, today it is this February. The minister said this is what they wanted to do. Introduce exactly, by September. By September. Now he comes back and says it is not exactly as they said. So you see, they are not too clear in terms of where they stand. And I think we are totally confused. They haven't made things too clear. Government hasn't been too sincere and fair with the people. Because whenever you develop policy, the most important thing is that allow enough consultation for the buy-in of the people. Till you reach that stage, you don't go back, you don't go to implement.
GPC is also consulted on this matter.
On these particular sexual issues, no, but when they were developing some of the curriculum and what have you, as a matter of fact, they even took away the religion out of it. But then we decided that
we needed it back in there.
And so they brought it in. But not the aspect of this sexuality issue.
Okay, now let me clear my mind on this particular one. Is there an opposition to the entire concept of comprehensive sexuality education or elements of the comprehensive sexuality education?
I would think that some elements of it, you see, there's nothing wrong when you teach a young boy at the age of 4, you know, this is your body, this is your private part, this is what you should do. Should somebody who is not, you know, a stranger to touch this area, this is what you should be able to tell mommy or daddy. There's nothing wrong, because they need to have some kind of education one way or the other. But now to tell them that they can satisfy themselves, they can masturbate, you know, they can experience that. At that age, they are not ripe for it. They can't take decisions on their own. That makes it wrong.
I'll come back to you, forgive me, but let me go to the phone lines where I'm told that the Archbishop Philip Name, who is also the president of the Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference, is on the phone line. Your Grace, you're welcome to UPfront. Well, I'm not so lucky. I'm sure I lost him on the line there. I should be able to raise him back and continue. But you were making the point about what is acceptable,
yes,
what is reprehensible so far as your position is concerned.
Yes, and therefore, you know, there are certain elements you need to teach them to, you know, to prevent, you know, pregnancy, teenage pregnancy, and what have you.
Which we have always taught our kids anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, you know, how to be able to identify rapists and those sort of things. There's nothing wrong to teach, but to give them opportunity that they should express themselves. You know, anal sex, you know, masturbation and what have you. At that age, we are getting ourselves into serious trouble. Somebody argued that, well, if you tell the child at the age of 4 that they could do these things, then of course allow them to vote at that age. But you and I know that they cannot, they don't have the,
they've not reached the maturity age,
the maturity age to vote. So why are you asking them to do certain things that adults only should do, and yet they cannot vote? It's not making sense. There's something wrong that government is hiding from the people.
I'll come back to that point about what government is hiding from the people, but let me go to the phone lines and try my luck with the Archbishop Philip Nye. The Archbishop Philip Nye is the president of the Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference. Your Grace, you're welcome back. If you can hear me, sir, I was interested in getting to know whether from where you sit, this matter has been resolved and dropped in the dustbin completely, as in the element of comprehensive sexuality education that you oppose vehemently.
Hello?
Yes, sir. And yes, Your Grace. Yes, I was asking a simple question. If you could help me with some answers.
Yeah, just ask the question again. I didn't hear you well.
You have had interactions with the ministry on this matter after it all blew up.
Yes.
Are you convinced that government has heard your plea and has abandoned this particular comprehensive sexuality education policy?
Well, the Minister of Education called me yesterday at 5:10, telling me he wants to reassure me and confirm that government is not going to embark on that curriculum which has been posted on the social media as meant for 4- and 5-year-olds. They have a program for health education which Catholic Bishops Conference have seen, which did not include what they were posting yesterday. So that one they will go ahead to implement. But as for whether we are sure or not, we need to embark the officials of the ministry, and that will come on later.
Now, let me also bring to your attention, I'm sure you might have heard it, that in the budget for this year, the specific section 369, government made a commitment to inculcate what it has called development of guidelines on comprehensive sexuality education into its curriculum, which is being reviewed as of the time that the budget was being read. Did he explain to you that that was not in any way connected to what is now being discussed?
No, no, he did not. But he just told me that the stuff that was posted yesterday, including the anatomy of the woman, which 4- and 5-year-old children are supposed to be taught, and also this thing with condom and the use of it, he says that that will not come on board. So I think that I'm putting a committee in place, and we will study it and meet the minister again. Before that, I don't think that we can say we are convinced that this will not happen.
Now, the other point that many have raised about this is, in all of this, the Catholic Bishops' Conference and the Catholic Church itself has had this education unit. This is not the first time you understood and appreciated education matters in this country. Reproductive health matters has always been part of our education system. Exactly what do you abhor? Exactly what do you oppose? And exactly what is not acceptable to the Bishops' Conference?
Well, I think that I have said sufficiently things concerning that in so many interviews I've given. I don't want to start repeating myself. I think what we are saying is that this stuff about teaching children how to do sex, and even to put in their minds that having sex is a human right, this is wrong. We don't accept that. In the plan of things, God created a human sexuality within the context of a marriage between a man and a woman. That is the context where sex is permitted. Outside this context, it is sinful. And it is equivalent. What was happening in those things yesterday in the debate is equivalent to saying, let's teach people how to sin without consequences. And this is not permissible for a responsible state. And none of the religious bodies, whether it's African traditional religions or Islam or Christianity, the different denominations of Christianity, will not accept this. And Ghana is a very religious country. So I don't know where they get these ideas to come and try to impose it and let children of that age imbibe this dirty stuff. So that is the matter that we don't accept. We know it's happening, but it's not for a government to come out and propagate it.
Now,
if people are engaged in sinful acts, it's not for the government to come out to teach its inhabitants how to sin without consequences. I mean, this is abominable.
Your Grace, the claim is that there are powerful lobbying institutions worldwide and locally who have descended on this nation with the interest to make sure that this is insidiously inculcated into our system. Can we fight it? Can various groups like you fight it?
Why can't the government, when we go to the government, they say they see our point. Why can't the government tell those powerful lobbies that as at now, we don't think that is culturally acceptable to us here in Ghana? I don't think any of them will teach his 5-year-old child the anatomy of their mothers. This is a very heavy responsibility. Alone the maturity which the child has not reached. The child of 5 has not attained that maturity to be able to handle this, which God has created and defined also the context for its use. It's within the context of a marriage between man and woman. And we all know that in traditional Africa, we had the rites of initiation, during which people were taught the responsibilities of adulthood. They didn't perform any rites of initiation for 5-year-olds. It's when people were preparing to enter adulthood that they had to subject themselves to these rites of initiation.
I get your point, and I'm most grateful to you for your time this evening. And you heard there the president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference, the Archbishop Felix Name, who told us clearly that the Bishops' Conference is putting together a team to meet with the Education Ministry to iron out the differences in understanding on this particular matter. That as of now, they are still unclear in their minds on this matter. Now, it looks like every single religious body in the country is opposed to it. Sure. There's a lot of Ghanaians also opposed to this. Yeah. What's the downside if government says, well, we'll proceed with it because the lobby groupings and we are told there's some money involved and all of that? What can happen in this state?
Raymond, believe you me, no
you know what can happen. It's not me to tell you, and then you say Bishop Name says this and that.
Oh, no. Forgive me, Bishop.
You know, if Ghanaians are dissatisfied, you know what they can do. So it's not for me to say.
I understand that, and I appreciate your time, Bishop. Many thanks to you for joining us on this one. Well, let me come in studio here, and yes, Bishop, I was speaking to you on this one.
Well, I strongly believe no government can survive if they dare the people and they decide to do it without respect for the people. You know, it is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And therefore, it is the people that put them into office. They work for the people. Okay. They don't work for themselves. And therefore, they should listen to the people. If they dare the people will remove them from office, period.
Sheikh, what's the downside if government insists or if it happens to happen and it ends up in our curriculum? Can we withdraw kids from schools? Can we say we are abandoning the education system? Can we do anything different from just saying that we're opposed to it?
I think that something incidents have happened in this country, and we have seen how the power of the people can work. The recent, drop the chamber is a clear example. The vehemence of the aversion that has been expressed, for example, is the one that has compelled the minister to come out. So I think we can grade it up and bring pressure to bear. Even in the parliament are there representing people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that is what is good about democracy. We seek to use opportunities within the democratic dispensation and bring pressure to bear on government to remove something that we think it is not in the best interest, because we think so much about what is in the supreme interest of the country without losing our values and our identity. I also want to propose that probably what the ministry should do is to quickly reassemble all the stakeholders, religious bodies, and give probably again an explanation that will be satisfying. And then in the engagement, probably we can see areas where we think is of concern.
Okay. For a second, I'll take a break. When I come back from this particular break, we'll be joined by the PR of the Education Ministry, with the hope that some of the important questions can be answered once again, and we can get it resolved in a second. So after this break, Vincent Asifa joins us on our front. You welcome back to our front. So I do have here the Public Relations Officer or Director of Public Relations at the Ministry of Education. I also do have a regular guest who are in this conversation, Vincent. Now, we've seen what in Section 368 was stipulated in the budget about what was going to happen with comprehensive sexual education. We've also seen elements of what the minister said way back in February, what he said yesterday, and what he said on Peace FM today. If we are unclear in our minds about the direct status of this particular comprehensive sexuality education thing, what is government's unalloyed stance on it?
Let me say a very good evening to your cherished viewers and to my senior colleagues here. The point is that there's a government position, as we speak, that comprehensive sexuality education is not supposed to be in our curriculum framework. What the minister...
Give me a second.
When did you take this decision? Forget about what happened, what you have seen in the budget, what you have...
They are all
we have...
Hold on.
We have a culture. We have a tradition.
Good.
Most of the people in this country knows that the introduction of things that are lesbianism, gayism, bisexuality, and transgender are things that we frown at. In fact, the Criminal Offences Act of this country talks about or frowns at unnatural carnal knowledge. Why should any state policy brings about a policy that is supposed to override the law of the land? I've already indicated on other platforms that we will not be part of any policy that seeks to override the law that we have in this country. And that law is Section 104 of the Criminal Offences Act. So the point I'm trying to make to you is that this current government, and it will not be under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, neither is it going to be under Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, where we are going to introduce comprehensive sexuality education that will include lesbianism, gayism, bisexuality, and in fact transgender.
Okay, now, so we should disregard what's in the budget.
I am just telling you what the people feel. My senior colleague defined what government is all about: for the people, of the people, and by the people. If the people are rejecting it, so be it.
Bishop Mensah, are you convinced now that government has abandoned this particular comprehensive sexuality education thing completely?
I think perhaps for now we can take government by his word. And then we need now we'll trigger an engagement process of discussion with government so that government will have to confirm exactly if this is the position, because we don't agree this. This program cannot be sustained yesterday, it will not be sustained today, it will not be sustained tomorrow, as long as Ghana is a religious nation. And therefore we will have to engage government to be certain about this.
Sheikh.
Yeah, I think I associate with this view that let's engage with the minister and all stakeholders. Let's understand. For example, if you say comprehensive, what do you mean by comprehensive? What is the definition? How does it satisfy us? How broad? What is involved, inclusive in all these things? This is a dimension which is the minister. So the technicality or the principles underpinning this have all not been well understood. And so broader consultations and with also experts is what will make us understand. And I insist that, like my brother said, what we think is at variance with our time-honored values and traditions, we delete. What we think in the supreme interest of our country will be useful for us as adults and even for our children, helping them to be able to make useful and more edifying choices of their lives without putting them at the risk of making wrong decisions and choices. At the most impressionable stage of their growth, they are unable to determine this. And that's where the risk lies.
Let me do some more clarification on this one. So are we throwing the entire comprehensive sexuality thing into the dustbin, or elements of it that people are opposed to are what we are discarding today? Are we reverting to what used to be the reproductive health trainings that we've had in our curriculum over the period, or we're still going to have comprehensive sexuality education, but this one, it's in tune with what the people who are opposed to it find it acceptable?
Well, I think the challenge that we have faced over the past few days is the issue of what really constitutes the supposed comprehensive sexuality education. Because it's not the first time we are hearing about this. In fact, in February, when the UNESCO launched the comprehensive sexuality education, the Minister of Education was there. The Minister of Education actually spoke about comprehensive sexuality and reproductive health education, which is supposed to include how you can reduce, or if you like, improve HIV infections, how you can also improve teenage pregnancies, how you can also reduce child marriage and what have you. I think that these are things that have already been part of the curriculum that we have. In the new curriculum that we have, we are also bringing those things that used to be in the old curriculum to the new curriculum. So the challenge has been how to define the so-called comprehensive sexuality education. And of course, the miscommunication that came out there was the fact that comprehensive sexuality education was supposed to include LGBT. In fact, I hold in my hand a book that was published in 2015. at the time that Jacob A. M. Kor was the Director General of Ghana Education Service. In fact, the preface of that particular, of this particular book, mentioned comprehensive education sexuality. So it's not something that is new in the setting that we find ourselves. But of course, as to how it has been miscommunicated has been the problem. Maybe the Ministry of Education or the Ghana Education Service will have to go back to the drawing board and redefine what the comprehensive sexuality education is all about. One that will exclude LGBT.
Okay, now, last point in this particular case. So we are in September. When are we rolling out this new curriculum?
Of course, you know that the new curriculum is already in place. We have already provided resource packs to the teachers. About 152,000 teachers that we trained across the country are already using. And you insist that the training has nothing to do with comprehensive sexuality education? Well, the training that I know of, there was nowhere that we talked about comprehensive sexuality education. It may have found itself into the curriculum framework. Probably not the curriculum framework itself, but maybe the curriculum or the framework that was used to develop the curriculum. So the point is that it's something that we found at Simplicita.
But the minister said it was going to be effected in September. So February when he said it it's going to be implemented in September.
That's the point I made. What really constitutes the so-called comprehensive sexuality education that he talked about? Because I know when the minister was talking or speaking in February at the UNESCO plant, he mentioned comprehensive sexuality, reproductive health education. That is something that the opinion that's different from the comprehensive sexuality that we have all been discussing up to today. Is that what you're saying? It depends on how you want to put it. That's what I'm saying, that in that context, we will have to come out clearly as a nation and define what we want to put in our curriculum. But you are the people in charge of education. Yes. I mean, you determine what the policy and the details are supposed to be. What have you defined going forward to be used? It is defined as anything excluding LGBT.
Since when?
Well, that's what I know, because what I know is that we are not going to teach our kids anything like LGBT in our classroom. That is what I know. Last words from you, Bishop Mensah. Your last word before we go.
Well, just to remind you that by the great philosophy, the three groups of people we have: the idiots who think about here and now, and they are not thinking about what will change; the tribesmen who think about their group, whether they are doing good or for evil; and the citizens who think about the next generation. We must have leaders who are thinking about the next generation to shape our society.
Sheikh, let's do some community outreach. If the government thinks that it is no more including it, some community outreach will do, roundtable discussion, will do, bringing on board all experts and stakeholders, and let's really clarify the definitions.
Well, many thanks to you, gentlemen, for joining me here today. And folks, thank you so much for being with us on Upfront today. That's where we end today's edition.